Matty G. What's going on?
That is me. That is me.
All right.
How are you, bro?
I'm good. So Cory Clipston here, and this is episode 4 of Ugly Duckling in the Bright Orange Future. Am I Ugly Duckling because you have a little bit more ginger in your hair? Like, I don't know. Are you the Bright Orange Future?
I like that. I've never been called the future of anything before, so I'll take it.
Well, we're all speeding into the future,
Yeah.
but no, that is not what the podcast is about, because it's been asked, and no, it's not.
People are asking.
People are asking which one of you is Ugly Duckling, which one of you is the future, and that's not what it's about. I don't know what it's about. We're figuring it out.
That's right.
But we do believe that it's important to talk about music. It's a universal language, and we can't help but talk about fun 80s and 90s culture and Gen X and things like that. And then obviously we like to fit in a little Bitcoin toward the end. So it's going to be a fun show again.
Squeeze it in there. Yeah.
What's new in your life? It's end of the day Monday. Haven't talked to you since last Thursday.
That's right. Mondays, busy at I was out of it today. I'll tell you what, I came in, the first thing I did at the restaurant, I'm packing up 2 to-go bags, and I get them packed up, and we have the situation where we take orders at the window during the COVID time. We're not letting people into the restaurant proper, so to speak. And a couple people come up at the same time, and one's an online order, one's a phone order. And for some reason, I think, I'll just grab both these orders with one hand. I've never even done this since this. In my 6 years, I haven't tried to do a double-handed to-go bag with one hand. So two bags, one hand, and then grab a drink over here. And I pick up the bags, and the first one that I grab, as I'm taking it off the counter, so then it completely rips apart, falls apart, and stuff starts just coming apart.
Oh no!
Tots are flying out, tater tots are this way and that. The cook is looking at me like, "Why did you just throw all the food on the ground?" That was really an interest. That's not really how the restaurant works. You don't take the food, throw it on the ground first. You just, it's like, it was so embarrassing, and that was like the first thing I did today. I had to remake half the order. And all day I was have you ever have those days where you're just kind of bobbly? I mean,
just kind of off. Yeah. I mean, I have them all the times because I still have a 2-year-old. So yeah. I mean, if she wakes up before 6, then I'm like that whole day, including today.
Yeah, I forgot those days. That can make you so foggy when you get up really early. Yeah. And then you have a day to do, and then it's just like, why am I just kind of feeling this lethargy here? Because you didn't get any sleep.
The legs have been real heavy. The eyes have been tired, but it's been a really it's been a fun day.
That's good.
Yeah, it's good. No, I mean, So it's so interesting. Something yet again, sad happened in the neighborhood out here in SoCal. Turns out I didn't know, because we don't really know our neighbors here in Calabasas, but Elvis Presley's grandkid, who killed himself, I think early yesterday morning, was like 2 blocks away from here. It's like literally down the street and to the right. So that's been pretty wild to see helicopters again all over the neighborhood with Kobe. Really? Kobe was just 6 months ago. So yeah, it's I don't know. I was trying to think, like, I guess it's just because so many of these people like to live out here, just outside LA. And anytime one of these, famous or semi-famous people or whatever, if they die, it's news. So it makes you feel like there's death around you all the time, but really it's just because the news covers the deaths here, but there's probably no more than there'd be in, like, Fremont or Santa Monica or any other place.
Nobody's talking about Steve. He was 2 blocks over.
Exactly. Anyway, that's the logic that I use with my wife as she was kind of getting depressed about all the death and depression around us. And I was like, it's just that the news covers the deaths around here.
Yeah, that's true.
Anyway, so that was depressing side of things. The really fun thing was we were ripping through season 2, catching up on Cobra Kai, which is one of my favorite. It's the only good YouTube show that I've ever seen that was like produced by YouTube Studios or whatever.
I have never seen any of that. So YouTube, I forget that they have their own streaming.
Yeah, they have their own
shows and stuff.
That one is freaking great. It's so fun.
I've heard that one's a good one. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, so that's mandatory viewing. You'll rip through it in a week or two and catch up. It's just 2 seasons, and yeah, it's just super fun. I love twists like that. They basically brought back. It's 30 years later, and it's all about Johnny and what happened to him.
Okay. Yeah, I did hear about that. I've heard that's good.
Yeah. It's really fun. Anyway, and I'm partial to it because I was definitely known for rocking a Johnny costume every once in a while on Halloween.
So right in your wheelhouse. Oh my gosh.
I did 6 years in a row of blonde movie villains.
Yeah.
Yeah. 1 year I was actually in shape, so I pulled off Drago. Most of the time it was like something heavily clothed. I was Hansel from Zoolander 1 year. Yeah.
Nice.
I met my wife when I was Eric from True Blood, the Alexander Skarsgård character. That worked.
Yeah, I forgot you always you had a real run of going big on Halloween, didn't you?
We did.
In your Chicago days and stuff.
The Chicago Halloween parties were good times. Indeed.
Kind of legend.
That deserves a whole other episode. We'll save that one.
Halloween in Chicago.
Listen, man, right before we got on, I don't even know why we brought this up, but we were kind of just riffing on, you and I were both like pretty good amateur athletes, but both had like really intense levels of competitiveness. And I think you even more than I did. And one thing I remember, watching you play a lot of tennis and basketball over the years is just how insanely focused and concentrated. So notwithstanding your fumbling of the takeout orders this morning, I really do remember the difference between your complete lack of self-consciousness, like playing pickup basketball or tennis or something, and just fucking wanting to win. Yeah. Versus I felt like it was definitely rarer for me to slip into that state, call it the zone or flow or whatever. I'm just curious, like, what do you think it was about the zone for you that made it, at least from me looking at it, so much easier for you to get in the zone than other people? Was it just maniacal desire to win?
Maniacal desire. You know what's so funny is throughout my life, and this happened most recently at the when I was a school teacher, and the students, after about a year in, they gave me this feedback, and we were talking about who's competitive and something like that, and they all
you hadn't lost Candy Cane Lane in 3 years or something.
they started calling me out and saying, well, no one's more competitive than you, Matt. You're so competitive. Oh my gosh, so you can't let anything go and all this, I'm honestly a little bit baffled. I never think of myself that way. I just completely am that way, I think. Like, I just don't have any, it's just the only way I know how to be, for so long is just in this like hyper competitive, when it comes to things I love somehow too, like there's just, I obsess. And I think with, basketball and tennis, I always feel like basketball is one of my meditations in life, or one of my safe places, one of the places where I quiet my mind and I just completely go to another place especially when I really played a lot, you know what I mean? And it's just like, and I know you know this feeling too, and anyone who does a sport regularly and gets that feeling out of it, I know can relate to just that feeling of your mind just being focused on this one activity, and just how good that obviously feels. That must be one of the reasons we do it. Like, why do we go out there and play so hard? I don't know.
I think it's meditative.
Yeah, I think it is too.
It definitely clears your mind. It's certainly one of the things that I miss, having left Santa Monica a year and a half ago now, because we had the most popular pickup court on the west side of LA, block and a half from my house. Like, it was right there. Anytime I wanted, 7 days a week, you could go get a game. Definitely miss that.
That was a great court. I remember walking over there and just eyeballing that, going, this is a scene. This is nice.
On the other hand, my
had some
niece
shade too, didn't it?
it had enough shade. I mean,
that was nice.
Yeah, it had like an A court and a B court, so there was like overflow on Saturdays.
Yeah.
You could get 2 games going. Like, it's pretty solid. I remained friends with a couple of the guys that I met. Just, you know, you don't ever have to talk. You get to know somebody's personality just by watching them play basketball and like seeing. You learn so much about people through that. It's kind of interesting.
That's another great side effect of a regular game is the community and the people you know, and the people that, like you said, you don't have to talk to. Some people you do. Some people you become really good friends with. Some of the best friends I have are through pickup basketball relationships that grew, you know?
Yeah.
But I am, you know, to tie into being in the zone and what that feels like, and what you can learn from it, I think, is that when you're doing something and you feel that, it might be something that you should consider doing more of. And this doesn't have to be a sport, you know. I think in life it's a general prescription that if you have a talent for something, whether it be baking or a sport or doing something on the computer, coding, you tend to get feedback from people that you're good at that. You know what I mean? Like, people are like, hey, Cory, you're really good at drawing, let's say, you know. And then that leads to that's kind of a reward system, because you're good at something, you get rewarded with feedback. That motivates you to keep going and to keep getting better at it. At least this is something I kind of believe. That it's reinforced. When you're good at something, those things get reinforced, if you're lucky, by those around you, and you continue to go down that path. And that feeling of being in the zone can grow to being bigger, you know. And then you've got a group of people that are kind of in the same element as you are. I'm trying to.
Yeah, that's definitely like the external proof or recognition that you know, are doing good things, and tying that back into like, oh, well, maybe I'm doing good things because I can enter the zone or get in flow and therefore perform higher. That's definitely one thing. I definitely am, and just kind of like bringing it forward and trying to apply it to present day life. You know, it's so difficult when you're scattered across, you know, being a parent and working and all these different things, to find time for an activity that would let you slip into the zone. So I'm actually just like trying to find ways to block off like big blocks of, you know, 2, 3, 4 hours, where at least I can have an opportunity to get into like a mental flow state, even if it's just for work. Like, the work is the only thing where I can kind of control my schedule enough to block off that time right now.
Yeah.
You know, and it's interesting. I can't find,
I think that's how it works with, that's how it works with somebody who, say, one of my favorite essays was David Foster Wallace about a tennis player. And he was a really good amateur tennis player too, David Foster Wallace. But he followed this guy. He was like number 100 in the world or something. Like, not a top guy, but a guy who's like trying to get up there. And he hung out with him and kind of observed his life. And one of the things that stuck with me is his observation of how boring his life was, because it was so focused on one thing, just tennis. It was like so revolved around being a tennis player. Everything, diet, schedule, waking up, hitting balls, practicing. He didn't even have mind room or like bandwidth for, you know, what was going on in the world or any regular news. It was just completely one-pointed. And I bet that kind of, if you spend so much time practicing living in one activity, of course you're going to find more time to be in the zone, because you have many more opportunities to be in that way. And you're trying to train your body to be at its optimum when it really matters, right?
Yeah.
So
It makes a lot of sense. Yeah, well, maybe on a future episode, we'll touch on a book that I'm partway through right now called Range, which is about the difference between activities that you can get really good at just by doing kind of repetitively. You know, example would be like golf, where it's just you, right?
Yeah.
And other activities where, you know, you can't get better at it just by doing it over and over and over again, because it's dynamic and it involves lots of other people and things change and there's strategic decisions. And, you know, so your mental map, if you just kind of like do things on repeat, will be wrong. And you know, the stats show it's actually a net negative to over practice some of these things that exist in more dynamic environments. So yeah, it's basically like a fallacy that you can train for, let's say, business success or success in politics or life or anything really by training the way a chess player or a tennis player or a golf player does. Super interesting. It's Epstein. I think it's David. I can't remember the first name, but Epstein's the same guy who wrote The Sports Gene, which was a fascinating book about 5 or 6 years ago. So I'm just digging into that. But listen, we want to kick off officially. We're going to call, what are we calling this? Matty G learns Bitcoin. Matty G goes bits deep. I don't know.
That sounds a little wrong. I don't know.
We haven't decided yet. But I know you prepared a question, and so why don't you go ahead and ask that?
Well, I realize one thing to make this easier for me is to maybe go back to the beginning and then ask questions and build on top of those. So I'm not just like throwing darts all over the place. And I think for anybody who's starting to get into Bitcoin or look at it, you run into something called the white paper pretty soon. And it's like the white paper by Satoshi Nakamoto. I don't know what that, like, what is that exactly? Is that just, I mean, I know you can basically download it and try to read it. I think I looked at it one time. It looked really complicated and I put it away. Yeah. What is the deal with the white paper? That's today's question.
That's today's question. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, so we're going to try something else, which is, instead of me just answering XTemp, what I'm going to do, I knew you were going to ask this question or something related to it. So I'm going to actually tee up my co-founder, Yan Pritzker, who also is the author of Inventing Bitcoin. And let's see if we can get him to answer this question for us.
Oh, cool. Cool.
What is the Bitcoin Whitepaper? In 2008, Satoshi Nakamoto, which is either an individual or a group, we don't actually know because we don't know who this person or people are. This entity publishes a paper called Bitcoin, a peer-to-peer electronic cash. And this paper describes how Bitcoin works. It describes the central innovation of Bitcoin to get a network of computers who don't know each other, who don't trust each other, to agree on a ledger of accounts, a ledger of transactions that allows money to move from one person to another without any central intermediary. This was an amazing innovation of the time and had previously thought to be impossible. And when Satoshi published the white paper, people started to comment on it, and later on he released the source code, and that allowed people to start running the Bitcoin code, and that spawned the Bitcoin network as we know it today.
That worked.
Whoa.
You had audio the whole time?
I had audio the whole time.
I'm going to have to pause this one. There we go.
Yeah,
all
good
right.
job.
Very cool. Very exciting. So did that make sense? We can go a little deeper.
Yeah. He said that people were working on it for a long time. Were other people, I'm just technically don't know what to call it, but were other people close to developing what he developed, or was this really a unique, one of a kind, aha, wham, zammy moment?
It's both. It's both.
That occurred.
So, yeah, I mean, it goes way back. Like when IP, Internet Protocol, was first invented, they left a space for digital payments over the internet, assuming that someday somebody would figure it out. So you know how you get like a 404 error when the page doesn't load, or there's like an information transfer protocol error or something. I don't know what it is, 402 or 403 or something, but there's an error in the internet protocol about like payment didn't go through. So they actually assumed that someday somebody would figure it out. What they realized was, and this goes back to a paper from, I think, like 1982, and it was called the Byzantine Generals Problem. And very simply, it basically says, you know, there's this problem in computer science of if you send some information to somebody else, that could be like, let's say money, so like the record of a payment. It was basically, there was no way, it was an unsolved problem in computer science to provably transfer that information or that value if it were money, and know for sure 100% that the person who sent it didn't retain a copy or send it to somebody else. So it's like the double spending problem.
That was going to be my next point.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah.
So when I send you an email, you have a copy of it, but also there's no way for you to know whether I kept a copy of it. And in fact, almost always I do have a copy of it. It's in my sent email, right?
Right.
If you're going to send money over the internet, you need to prove that, you know, the person who spent the money doesn't have it anymore.
That's right.
So that's what Satoshi solved. And, you know, a lot of people, not a lot, like a couple dozen people thought that potentially the answer lay in proof of work, which is, you know, a key component of the system. And there were other proof of work e-cash systems that were attempted prior, and probably the most famous ones are by Wei Dai and a guy named Adam Back, who tried something called hash cash, and some other ones were theorized. But yeah, the first guy or guys and gals or whatever Satoshi Nakamoto is, was the first one to actually figure it out, solve the Byzantine Generals Problem, and do it with a system that included, you know, a proof of work blockchain. So very few people recognized it right out of the gate and were like, oh my God, you solved this amazing problem, because there were only a few dozen people that even cared about that problem. And of those, it was so hard to figure out that, yes, that actually did crack it, that did solve it, which is why it took a while for that network to grow. That
was around 2008, 09, 08, 09?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so the white paper was released on Halloween of 2008, and then he kept coding it and released the network and turned the network on January 3rd, 2009.
And do people know how many Bitcoin Satoshi Nakamoto has? I don't know.
Yeah, Satoshi, you know, as near as anybody can tell, coins belonging to Satoshi that were mined in the early days by him or them is probably about 1 million coins. So maybe just under 5%.
Wow, that's actually kind of a humble amount compared to what he could have done, right? Or they could have done, or...
You know, he basically just wanted to make sure that there was always, you know, some hash power on the network and that it was always up. So he didn't try to take more than he needed to. And once there were plenty of other computers on the network, then he stopped mining.
Nice.
Pretty wild. Yeah.
That is wild.
It is interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. That's great.
Well, I am going to save my last topic for another episode.
Okay.
But yeah, we're on a future episode. We're going to talk about the time that I tried to red pill Keanu Reeves on Bitcoin.
Yeah, we want to hear that story. I think
tell that story.
Teasing that story, because
keep teasing it.
Everyone will have to
every episode.
Yeah. And then they'll have to keep watching these episodes just to hopefully get that story out of you.
One of these days.
It's gonna be great.
Yeah. Well, good, Matty G. This was awesome. It's good spending some time with you. Glad to try out the new segment.
Yeah.
We've gone out off without a hitch. Pretty cool.
Yeah. Look at us.
Yeah. And so see you Thursday.
Hey, brother. See you on Thursday. Okay.
All right, bro.
Sounds
Bye.
good. Peace.